What's up, YouTube, and welcome once again back to the channel. As always, I appreciate you joining me today. Obviously, we are here again with the Lamborghini Gallardo and what is hopefully the last upgrade or maintenance video for the season, because the nice weather is here. I was actually out driving the car all weekend last weekend, and lots of car events scheduled for later this month, so it took a little longer to get the parts for this one. If you've paid attention, been watching the videos and the oil change video I did, I kind of teased one more project for several reasons. Like I said, because the nice weather's here, lots of car events coming up. I'm ready to put some miles on this thing and enjoy it. And number two, I'm pretty well tapped out financially. I've kind of spent a rather staggering amount on this car over the last 6 months. So anyway, let's get to it. This car is getting a complete brake job. I'll show you what we're working with, and I'll show you why. So the brakes on this car are not wore out. I've already pulled one of the other sides apart here so I could show you guys some parts and pieces. Here's one of the pads. They are not wore out. This car doesn't get tracked. This is my date night car. It's for casual sport driving, things like that. And I'm super OCD. You guys know I like to keep everything clean and immaculate. Like I said, I drove this car this last weekend, so it's got 2 days of casual driving on it. And the brake dust is horrendous on this car. It literally will coat the entire side of the car after a little bit of driving. This was super minimal driving. I can't keep the wheels clean, I can't keep the car clean, and it drives me nuts. I get it. These sport compounds are super soft. These, you know, high performance car, they're made to be that way. Personally, it drives me nuts. I don't need that, so I'm going with a ceramic pad. While I'm at it, we're putting all new rotors on the car, and here's why. The front ones, like I said, I've already got one off. We're done at one point. Somebody's already had these rotors turned. I've already mic'd them. They are at minimum tolerances, so they cannot be resurfaced again. And if you'll notice, the problem with cross-drilled rotors, when most people have resurfaced, in fact, I can't say I've ever seen anyone that has done it. Once they've resurfaced cross-drilled rotors, these things turn into a cheese grater that's super sharp. It's like a knife on those pads. Let me show you what they should look like, or what they look like when they're new. See if I can get in it with my camera. So here is the brakes on the Chevelle, running cross-drilled as well. And you can see there's a nice bevel. These are all chamfered. That's the way they come from a factory. They're a little bit rusty because I just washed the car and it hasn't been driven since. But that's what they look like when you start out. That's what they should look like. That's what the Lamborghini rotors look like to start with, and it's long gone. Makes a nice sharp edge. This takes that sharp edge away from those pads. Hopefully the camera will pick it up. I'll try and get it here. It's a little bit dirty, hard to see. Most of these factory rotors, it will tell you right here, there's a minimum how many millimeters these are supposed to be. It's literally stamped right on them. And like I said, these are already there. They will be under that if I had them turned again. So we've got all new goodies. Here's what we got. Here are the goods. And first of all, before I even dig into this, a huge shout out to Jason Bertman Industries. Awesome guy to work with. If you guys need parts, if you haven't spoken with Jason or worked with Jason before, I highly recommend. You guys know I pride myself on trying to work with quality products, and finding somebody in this day and age that will provide fantastic customer service is hard to come by, so people like that definitely deserve a shout out as far as I'm concerned. He was able to get all this for me. Had some hiccups with UPS, nobody's fault but theirs. He was able to save me several $100s, and just an all-around good guy to work with. I think the first time I spoke with Jason, we spent roughly an hour and a half on the phone just chatting, talking to me about information about the cars, answering different questions I had. Strongly recommend checking out Bertman Industries if you ever need anything. We've got all new Girodisc rotors for the car. We've got the fronts, got the rears, going with EBC Red brake pads. These are the ceramics. If you track your car or something else, you might want to go with yellow or something like that. They have several different versions. I don't want the brake dust, so that's why I've gone with what we're going with here. Everything comes ready to go. The wear sensors in the pads. So those are the pads that are going to be going on the car. The plan is to do it once, do it right, and be done with it as often as in the way that I drive this car. This should last me an incredibly long time. It's probably the most expensive brake job I've ever done on a vehicle. yet. Like I said, I want to do it right and be done with it. So here are the front gyro discs, absolutely beautiful pieces. They are the floating caliper, or floating hat, I mean, and rotor design, not the caliper, sorry about that. And the cool part about these is they are actually slightly larger than what came off of the car as well. And they're a little bit lighter weight. I already weighed these, I weighed those. There's roughly a 3.5 pound difference between the rotors. Just for comparison, see that they are just slightly larger, and for that reason they come with a spacer and longer caliper bolts to bump that caliper out just a little bit further to accommodate the larger rotor. And the cool part about these is you guys can see they got all the floating pins around here. If you ever need to, you can just replace this. You can reuse the hat. You don't need to replace the entire rotor again once you've done it. So they're larger and they're lighter weight, which is super cool. I don't have a rear one taken apart yet. We'll get to that as we dig into it. So that's what we're working with, guys, as far as parts and components go. I have yet to do a brake job on a Lamborghini, but like I said, I've already tore into the front on the other side. So far, there's nothing out of the ordinary. Pretty basic setup, easy to work on. One of the other things I am going to change while I'm at it, and so I'm already diving in here, is I have always loved the look of the Lamborghinis with the calipers body colored to match the car. So while I've got everything apart, I'm going to go ahead and take care of that as well. So this should be quite a night and day transformation once these are done. And Lord willing, I won't have to deal with it for quite some time. And praise Lord, I won't have to deal with that anymore either. Let's dig in. Stating the obvious, you can get the wheel and tire out of the way. So next thing we got, guys, are these two pins holding in these spring clips, holding pressure on things. I just get a small punch, doesn't take much, just lightly tap these things out of there. Start popping out, you got a little tension on the spring. Relieve that with your fingers. You usually just wiggle and pull these things out. And you can pull out your spring clips. Like I say, you got one top and bottom. So next thing I'm going to do is reach on the back here. There's the back side of this little clip for the wear indicator sensor. Just lift up on that, pull that right off of there. Then on the bottom side, there's just a little tab, leg, whatever you want to call it. Pry on that, and then you can just twist and pull the sensor out of the clip. Then next we need to relieve the tension on the pads in order to get them out of there. There's several different ways to do it. Personally, I like to crack the bleeders. That way I'm not worried about overfilling the reservoir as you're back forcing pressure through, and it makes it so much easier to manipulate and push those. I'm not super picky because I'm not saving these rotors or pads, so I'll just crack the pressure on these things, get in there and just pry a little bit. So you got fluid puking out, creates a little bit of room there. Get in with something a little bit smaller, pry that back. Tighten up the bleeder so you're not sucking air back in there. And then you're able to pull these pads out nice and easy. Two down, two to go. The other nice thing about just cracking the bleeder is these things are so soft, you can easily just get in there and manipulate those pistons with your fingers. I can pull them right back as far as they'll go, so we can fit those nice new fat pads back in there. Get the rest of those out, and then we'll work on getting the rotor itself off. Now that we have pads out of the way, piston's fully compressed, we've got a 10mm hex, you've got a bolt up top and up bottom here. You can break these loose and we can get the caliper out of the way. When it comes time to remove the rotors, sometimes you wonder what's holding these things on. Sometimes that corrosion has incredible staying power. Trick I learned from my grandfather a long time ago. Don't beat on it with a hammer, no need to do that. Just a little bit of heat, get a little bit of expansion, and these usually pop right off. It doesn't take much. You don't have to take a doggone acetylene torch to it or anything like that. Just gonna warm it up a little bit, create a little expansion around there. Help break that corrosion loose. And they just pop right off of there. Neat little trick if you ever struggle removing rotors. So when going back on the car, it is important to note, and Girodisc has these marked well, which their placement is on the car. It has to do with the vanes facing the proper direction for adequate cooling for the rotors themselves. So this is obviously our left front. They're all, like I said, marked really well, made very clear. It's easier to just cut it off. So now we'll start going back together with it. As you can see, I got that hub all cleaned up, get all that rust and corrosion off of there before I bother going back together with it. And for now, I'm just going to lightly use a couple lug nuts to hold these in place. And now, using the supplied longer bolts and spacers, we'll work on getting those beautiful calipers into place. It is important to note before you get going, Girodisc sends a bunch of instructions, break-in procedures and stuff with it. Read through everything before you get going. Get yourself in over your head. Everything's pretty basic, nothing outside of the norm when it comes to that. I said these are the longer bolts and the spacers we're going to be using to mount those calipers on there. And they are still a 10mm hex, so nothing changes there. And oh, you even got some cool stickers. Kind of reminds me of that Facebook meme a lot of you have probably seen when you spend $5,000 worth of parts and it comes with a cool sticker. How about when you spend $3,000 in brake parts and it comes with 2 cool stickers. So not sure exactly how much of this I'll be able to record without getting my body in the way as I stick my head back into the rest of this end, but you guys get the idea. Caliper, bolts, spacers, so forth. Just get the bottom one in and then we can snug this down. So I put a little Loctite on these caliper bolts and getting them torqued down. The only torque spec I could find for these bolts is for the Audi R8 at 70 foot-pounds. If I am wrong, someone please correct me. Alright guys, we got our EBC Red Stuff ceramic pads, and at this point I'm going to start inserting the pads back into the caliper. The one with the wear sensor is on the top inside. See if I can get a better job of showing you guys the brake pad wear sensor, since I didn't do a very good job when I pulled it apart. You got this little clip right back here, wire snakes around into it. The back side, this is kind of clips in there, spins, so you kind of hear it click right into place, and then it just plugs in. And to remove that, you've got this little clip on the back, just kind of lift up on it, and we'll unclip it. Clip back into place, you're good to go. Now we got all 4 pads in there, and we'll get our spring tensioners in there. As you guys can see, I've already got the bottom one in, so we'll work the top one in just because I feel like I can get the better angle on it with the camera. Enough force on there to hold that back into place and try to line it up. A little tension on it. I just give it a little tap with a hammer on the way in there. Once it's fully seated, we should be good to go. 1 down, 3 to go. And one last look at the final product before we put the wheel back in place and cover it up. Alright guys, with the front all buttoned up and looking phenomenal, we are on to the rear. Not a whole lot different here, still relatively simple. We got a couple less pads to deal with and the additional issue of having to deal with the e-brake. Not a big deal. Let's tear into it. So as with the front, we need to unplug the pad wear indicator. That's it there. Little tab there, spin that, spin it the wrong way, spin that, and work it out of the clip. So in the rear on our retention pins for the spring clip, we've got these 2 little keepers we'll have to pull out. There's a small hole in that pin that these go into. It's kind of like a small cotter pin with a bend. Be careful not to lose those. They ride just on the inside there. Once we got those out, now we can work on driving the pins out. Again, I'm just using a little punch and a small hammer. Drive those out backwards. And we can pull that spring out in the top one now that we got the tension off of there. In theory, will come out much easier. Oh yeah. Once you get those out of the way, same thing. I'm going to crack the bleeders and we're going to get the pressure off the pads here and work those pistons all the way back. Just like I did in the front. I'm just going to squeeze a little something in there and gently pry on them. And we're able to pull the pads right out. Pistons are fully depressed and should be ready to accept the new ones when we go back together with it. We got our 10mm hex. You got 2 bolts holding the caliper on. And just like that, we've got the caliper out of the way. Now in order to get the rotor off, like I said, we're gonna have to deal with the e-brake. So hopefully this will show up on the camera without my fat finger or shadow getting in the way. To get to the e-brake, just inside the pad in here, we've got another one of those little pins in the hole through our retaining pin. Tiny little guy, smaller than the front, up there on the main caliper. So we'll pull that out. And this one, and get in with a tiny punch. You can feel a hole on the back. This actually drives from the back side out towards the front. See a little compression retention spring there. Now be careful when you pull this out. This is a spring clip right in here as well. Pay attention to how this comes out. I will retain it with my finger while I get that out of there. And you'll see just how that comes out. So curved on one side, straight on the other, and that's just gonna snap right in there like so when we go back together. So now that we got that out of the way, we can just pull the outermost pad right out of there. Just like so. A little bit snug because there's still a bit of tension on that. Make sure your e-brake is released, obviously, before you attempt to pull that out of there. Much like the front, there's a bit of corrosion holding this on. I'm just going to use a little bit of heat, just like I did in the front. Create a little bit of expansion until that just pops right off of here. Simply pull that out of the way and just be wary the rear pad for the e-brake is going to fall right out of there. Now I'm sure there's a special tool for this, but what you're going to have to do before you go back together, and I'm just going to use a pair of needle nose, is adjust this puck back just by turning it clockwise. You can kind of see it work its way in there. Once we go back together with it, you'll see the linkage here on the back. You just kind of crank on this with your hand a couple times. Once it's back together, and you can watch that puck squirt its way back out. That will readjust the pressure back on your e-brake. But for now, we're going to adjust it all the way in so we're not fighting that when we put things back together. Alright guys, home stretch. We're going back together with the rear. Just about got this car back on the ground and get it going. Before we start putting this back together, I do want to point out one quick thing that you won't see me do in this video. The factory rear pads obviously have the built-in wear sensor. I can't pull that out of there. It's not reusable. I did not realize till the last minute the new EBC pads do not have that. They have the groove for that there. So I have ordered the Audi R8 Audi wear sensor there that will snap in there. I'm going to go ahead and put this back together today for the sake of the time that I have and the video, and I'm hoping that once that's in there I can still sneak that sensor in when they come in here in a few days. If not, I'm gonna have to pull these pads back out so I can get that sensor back in there. So just a note, you will have to order that and do that. They were not expensive. I think I paid just under $5 a piece for them and just as much to ship them, and unfortunately, like I said, they're still a couple days out. So just side note, you will have to do that, and like I said, hopefully I can sneak that in there and plug it in once this is all back together. I really don't see why not, but worst case scenario, I'll just have to pull that inner pad back out. Not a big deal. So anyway, let's get started. So we've already got that e-brake puck turned all the way in. So the first thing we're going to do before we stick that rotor back on is just take that inner pad and stick it right back up in there. And it should go ahead and stay put unless you bang that thing around. Now we can go ahead and get the rotor installed. So pretty sure I didn't point it out when I did the fronts. These are like any other brakes. If you guys have ever done brakes on a car, so they come with like a film of oil on them. Take a little bit of brake clean, a clean rag. Make sure you clean that off before you start bedding the pads on these. If you get fingerprints all over them, do it once they're on the car. But you'll always get a little bit of crud off of these things. So don't skip that step. Now I'm going to go ahead and assemble the e-brake first. And we'll try and take the outer pad now. We're going to wedge it in here. Might be a little bit snug. Not too bad. And it'll kind of hold itself in place. And then the key, when you're putting the pin back in, is don't forget we got that little hole, those little cotter pins. And line that up on the outside there where we can get to it as we feed that in there. So remember, before we push this pin in, the key with this one is this retention spring. Make sure it's oriented correctly. And we'll try and fish that pin through there. Just make sure it goes through everything. And like I said, that we can access that little hole for the retention clip once we get going. Might be kind of hard to see that tiny hole on camera, but we got it right there. We'll get our little cotter pin, in theory, right back in place. And then we'll give the linkage there a couple cranks, and you can watch that tighten itself back down and adjust itself. So now the e-brake's completely back together, we can get the caliper back on. Now, like the front, we're using a little Loctite on these bolts and torquing them to 70 foot-pounds. Like I said, without our wear sensor, I'm going to go ahead and stick the brake pads back into the caliper. Again, with those pins, remember we've got a hole. Make sure that lines up so that we can access it. And we don't want to forget our little retention pin. Insert our spring clip. Now the bottom one will have obviously tension on it once we go to put this pin through. And with our final retention pin back into place, our rear brakes are fully assembled. Well, technically not fully. Hopefully we can still access our wear sensor when those arrive. Okay, so my generic brake sensors have arrived from Parts Geek. Like I said, these were just under $5 a piece, and I believe they were listed for an 04 to 20 or 08 to like a 2012 Audi R8, something like that. I don't know, they look the same. Just a generic cheap little sensor, and it looks like I should be able to squeeze these in here without having to pull the pads back out of there. Like so, and then we'll get on the back side here. Put the camera back here. You got the same little tab on there and everything, looks identical. Twist it into place. Plug it in like so. Well, it was a cheap, easy fix for that. So here she is in all her glory. We've gone through the break-in procedure with the brakes. I've got the car all cleaned up, gave it a nice bath. Everything is looking and performing phenomenal. I couldn't be happier with the finished product. And like I said, this should last me a very long time. Very well, maybe the only brake job I ever do on this car, depending on how long I keep it. I'm sure someone's gonna ask, so I'll go over it real quick. I know this video is starting to get long, but hopefully somebody finds it helpful that might need to do a complete brake job. I know something like this would have been helpful to watch before I tackled the brake job, and I didn't see anything out there like it. As far as the calipers themselves go, I painted these. These are not powder coated. If you have the time to take and break them down, rebuild them, get them powder coated, it'd be a super durable finish. Unfortunately, it's springtime. I want to drive and enjoy this car. The nice weather is here, and several weeks backed up at the powder coater. So I took the time, even though it was still tedious, I was able to do it quicker. I pulled the calipers off, broke these things down, stripped them down, got some Oroncio Borealis paint. This is a tri-coat paint, so it's a little bit tedious. You have your, obviously once they're primed up, you got your base coat, you've got a mid coat, which is the pearl and the metallic. Let that dry real good. Then we got a vinyl, the Lamborghini logo decal, which was applied, and then I buried the calipers under about 4 coats of 2K clear. And they came out great. I'm super happy. They were all refreshed. They look really good. Couldn't be happier with the finished product. Like I said, it's time consuming, it's tedious, so I tried to save you guys some time, just show you the final product. Really, the video was supposed to be about the brakes, not the calipers themselves, but that is how we got to where we got to. So anyway, like I said, hopefully you guys find this video helpful, if nothing else, informative. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, guys. Almost hit that 2,000 subscriber mark. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. And with that, I will leave you guys with a few before and afters. Sorry guys, don't mind the shadows. I'm not a professional videographer.